Hey, what up, Peter?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, dude.
Hey, how's it going?
Yep. Yeah, I've specifically needed to like hold off on. I used to smoke a lot of fucking weed during our recordings, and I have since.
Oh yeah.
I have since, at the very least, kept a little more of a watchful eye on how much I'm consuming because I can't limit the likes while also smoking weed.
Maintaining a coherent train of thought.
I just can't even do it.
Yeah. I gotta watch the alcohol because I end up just screaming about the lib pandemic, and it's only good once, you know. It's like a one trick thing.
And then you start having to explain the concept of the lib pandemic, but you're gradually more and more drunk.
Right, exactly. Yeah, people are asking me questions like, I don't know anymore. You know what I mean? It's a meme now, you know?
Yeah, suddenly it makes so much more sense. knowing the mechanics behind it just makes so much more sense. Exactly how that goes down every time.
Just makes more sense. If you can say it angrily, it just makes a little more sense.
Yeah. The mechanics are fucking Jack Daniels, like a lot of Jack Daniels. Yeah. What's up with this? Coming at you?
So I'm at Slavoid T.
All right, this is Shit Spouter 37.
This is the Black Dot Compound.
This is the Fed Post.
What's up with this? What's up with is Movie Bob coming at you? Like, is he like quote tweeting me? Or?
Dude, we're not even keeping our powder dry. We're gonna go to my favorite topic before anything.
No, we got to start with that before we do anything serious. Like,
sure.
Is he quote tweeting you? Is he? What's the deal?
Movie Bob has like a really unhealthy thing with me where he follows like me and really pays a lot of like I'm pretty sure he listens to most episodes of Low Society because he will comment on them. And not on like directly on them, but like he will talk about them on his Twitter.
He'll like
quote tweet the Low Society. Yeah, he'll quote tweet the Low Society. Shit. Yeah, no, he actually does. Like he went after Ashley one time for like literally having a consistent opinion. I don't even know how to describe that. But I don't know. And he does it like all the time. Like he's so fucking like intent on just like knowing about what we do and trying to find some way to paint it as bad and like fashion adjacent in some way, like the libs are wont to do.
Right.
This recent one, today's okay, so I'm verified on Twitter. I'm one of the awful blue checks. I scammed my way into it by doing free labor for the HuffPost, just posting essays to it for free. I didn't get paid for it, but I knew that like I could use that to get a blue check mark.
It's the work.
Nice.
Then I deleted all of the articles.
Nice.
That I had posted.
Finesse.
Yeah.
Finesse in plays.
But yeah, so I have this on Twitter, like when you're verified, they have in your mentions, you know how it has notifications and mentions, those two tabs. It adds another tab, which is verified, which is you get your notifications and mentions explicitly like from any verified account that does activity on there.
Right.
And every time I go there, it's like every other tweet is Bob. Like he tweets at me. I'm not even joking. Like I think once a day at least, and oftentimes multiple times a day. And like today's was like, here, I'm gonna go to it because I want to be able to read this shit.
Oh man, fresh out of the oven.
Yeah, it's like
God,
when I
was it
say
that
this
one?
out loud, like everybody I've showed this to, and like they say to me, like, what is he saying? What I think he's saying? Because it's genuinely so fucking insane. But he is.
It's always so fucking reactionary. Is the funny thing that like he's the worst one. He is the poster child of saying the quiet part out loud. Is how I would put it.
All right.
For libs, yeah.
All right. So I said, is it leftist infighting when the other person has been pushing the DNC hard for about 6 months, which is obviously a combative tweet that has nothing to do with Bob. However, Bob injected himself in it and said, if you're trying to fight, I'm going to read, there's several tweets here, and I'm going to read all of them because it's amazing. If you're going to fight fascism by preventing the conditions it can grow in, then all you're going to do is create bad conditions that harm everyone.
Yo,
That's
man,
sentence
that's
one.
wow. Damn. Already
If you're
hard.
I'll just repeat it. If you're going to fight fascism by preventing the conditions it can grow in, which is exactly how you would fight fascism, by the way. That's specifically the thing you could do that would be effective. None of the bash the fast shit is actually effective.
Right. You take the product away from the snake oil salesman, and so
Yeah,
then you don't need-
exactly.
Right.
Like you address the contradictions within capitalism that fascism breeds in.
Right.
All you're going to do is create bad conditions that harm everyone. Plenty of bad elements arise in dark times, but fascism specifically requires, you know how they use stars to like emphasize a word? He did that here. Fascism specifically requires the improvement of conditions for a previously marginalized or disenfranchised part of society so that resentment at the perceived loss of privilege / superiority by a majority can be whipped into a worship of a mythic past and demonization of the outgroup and progress. Ergo,
Damn.
you can't poison the soil against fascist seeds without also poisoning it against the seeds that uplift and progress that fascists are in reaction to. Basically, he's saying if you help the worst off people in society, then fascism is going to happen because the people who aren't the worst off in society are going to be so fucking pissed off that you're helping the worst off people in society. And like, I think that to some people that probably sounds true. They're idiots, but I get it.
I mean, it's the same logic as the student debt forgiveness argument, isn't it? It's like it wouldn't this wouldn't be fair to the people, to the other people that don't have
already
this
been
issue.
Yeah,
It would not be fair. It would create resentment to all those students in the future and in the past that have gotten educated. Like they earned it. They fucking earned it, man.
Right.
And it's
Well, isn't that if it's true, isn't that kind of a argument against like critical race theory and that type of stuff that the libs are also doing?
See, that's the thing. It's ultimately like the argument is you shouldn't help marginalized people. Like, I don't know if he understands that's what he's saying, but that's what he's saying.
He sounds like he's trying to become the Joker or something. He's like, yo, like just like let it all burn, like let it go down. Like it's the only way we can build something.
Basically, the privilege. And here's the thing that I hate so much about this. It essentially asserts that class society is an utter necessity in order for there to be society. Like without class, without an underclass, without the haves and without the have-nots, there's no fucking point because somebody's gonna be so fucking resentful because they had before. And it's like, no, well, they're not gonna like lose it. Like they're also going to have. It's gonna be haves and haves instead of haves and have-nots. Like, that's the fucking point. Like, and that's not even fucking socialism. That's not even the thing that like the underlying argument really starts getting at. That's not ownership of the means of production or, you know, the mode of producing commodities or anything like that shit. It's literally just like, man, people get resentful because, you know, I don't like the idea that somebody who doesn't have something could have it.
Bob is owning fascism with the anti-communist playbook.
Yes, he's owning fascism by essentially like endorsing fascism. Like ultimately, that's the road that he's on here. Like,
no, he really is
rainbow
he really is
fascism,
amazing.
I guess.
No, he's a trip, man. He went after me for a little bit for something like I was saying like about Trump or something like. But his tweets are kind of like incoherent. Like you gave him a favorable read. Like off of what you said, I could vaguely understand what he said. But like without that, like usually I have a hard time.
I literally had to spend so fucking much of my day literally just staring. I did not respond to this immediately at all. I like sent it around to people. I was like, is this, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the thing he's saying. Please tell me that this is not the thing that he's saying so I don't have to, because it's not something I want to respond to. It's fucking insane. But like,
yeah, so
It's constantly
Bradley-
directed at me. What am I just supposed to ignore
No,
it?
of
I mean,
course.
yes, probably I'm supposed to ignore it, but
No, he's a big figure in politics. You gotta address that. But he's kind of making he's a power player. But like he's kind of making the
Like,
same
this-
argument I
this
saw
man-
some Bradlib's making. He was like saying like they were saying like some shit like these people are losing their white privilege and it's privilege and that's why they're addicted to opioids. It's because they're just so distraught by them going down a peg and that's why that's why them being addicted to opioids is okay. You know what I mean? Like, what's
it's
your
literally an
conclusion from
argument
that?
for like punishing people with opioids, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? How
Yeah,
can you
what's your
possibly think that way?
conclusion?
And ultimately, you do have to come to the conclusion that like he believes in an essential good and bad, and the bad people should probably just be killed. Like that's ultimately really what you're saying when you say that shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
actually funny because that good and bad thing is like a thing that I see come up in his like threads or arguments a lot, and I do think I'm convinced that like a big thing that informs
I know where you're going with this.
Well, I'd be interested to hear what you think. Well, I'll get to my point, which is just one of the things that I think informs Cinema Roberts, I believe that's his full Christian name, his approach to a lot of these things is and I think that this is the case for a lot of people too, is that like there is this slight self-awareness that like the left likes to fancy themselves as the good guys or the nice guys. And I know that the right certainly gets plenty of mileage out of, pointing out the wussification of these left wingers, right? And I think that there's a really cheap way of addressing that among a lot of people on the left, where they basically just think that they can get around that stereotype about them by basically presenting their opinions and their views in just the most repellent way possible, and just being generally kind of cruel and just not charitable at all. I see the other big example of this I see, and to be fair, I haven't watched a ton of his stuff, but Vaush seems to do this quite a lot. I know.
Yes, I agree.
He's just generally just kind of comes off as just the most miserable person you could possibly debate with, as a way of subverting your expectation that he like buys into the politics of having a beautiful heart or something, which to be fair is a valid criticism of leftists a lot of the time, is this kind of moral superiority. But yeah, I read this exact post from Bob earlier today, and it is just kind of like, oh, you're just trying to come off as just repellent morally or something. Does that make sense?
I think that
he's trying to be Chad. Right. Trying to be Chad.
To some extent, I think that you're right, because I think that like it's basically like reverse soy face, like they're trying to perform.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yes, and I think that was part of like I think that there's valid examples of it too. I think that there's I think there were parts of this that were being played out with just like the dirtbag left generally, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the whole civility thing, like, hey, let's end civility. It's like, man, I don't really care. I mean, you could be civil, don't be civil. I don't really care. I mean, it's kind of it's just an aesthetic thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's I'm not really concerned with how you're doing the discourse. I'm concerned with what the fuck you're talking about. You know what I mean? It's very different. So it's like, that was like their one big thing was like
different. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this is like their big thing was like, the major wedge we have is that we aren't civil. It's like, that's it. Like, is that your only? There's a lot of other things you could have a wedge about. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's the response to just Trump being the uncivil guy, but actually
right.
exactly,
right.
and just like he makes the establishment look like they have like an unfun stick up their ass, and so they go like, well, actually, civility. Which, to be honest, this is something I've thought a good deal about, because I think that civility in politics, like at least if you're the beneficiary of like bourgeois democracy, I think that having civility among normies is like a good thing to do, right?
Yeah,
But, like,
that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, like, depending on your context, like, civility might be very good. But, like, as far as, like, how you're performing in, like, a sort of a public role, like, depending on what you're doing, it's kind of like, I mean, there's certainly a time to be civil, again, when you're trying to do some kind of an outreach with, like, normal people, working class people, etc. Be nice to, you know, normal people who are, you're trying to convince of something. But, you know, there's also a lot of shitty people out there who you shouldn't be civil to.
right.
Well, yeah, it's like that whole rad lib like screaming in your face, like, oh, you need to put your fist up, or like the right wing one where it's like outside the abortion clinic, like screaming, "You're murdering babies!" Like that type of shit is a major turn off. It's hard to really convince someone to come to your side. It's like all these libs making these videos.
They see that and they fucking run off the other direction. It's every time. Especially, I like that you bring up the abortion one because it's the same thing. When you see somebody screaming at somebody like, you're gonna go to hell for doing this, like you're killing someone. Like it's the same thing as, you know, put down that fucking ham sandwich. White silence is violent. It's the same.
That's what I'm saying.
Thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 2000s right-wing Christians are like the rad libs now. It's just like, you know, the wokies now. It's like, it's that same energy. It's like, who does that really convince? You know, all these like vote for Biden videos where they're like screaming in the camera. Like, does that really work on anybody? Like, who? It also just shows that you don't have much of a
just
case.
Not in the way that they want it to. Like, I enjoy those videos so much. They're like, really? I don't think that there's any genre of video like these recent videos. The recent like leftist like influencers like being like, I don't think that Biden is my first choice, but here's why everybody has to vote for him. Yeah. Those fucking suck. Fuck that shit. I want middle class, middle-aged woman screaming at a camera in a minivan. That shit is the fucking funniest shit. It is so funny.
Screaming about fascism.
It is not effective. I do not think that it is effective, but it has a use value. I really fucking enjoy that shit. It is so fucking funny.
Yeah, this I mean, it's like, you know, as we get closer and closer to the wire, the you're gonna fall in line, you're gonna set up that camera, you're gonna make that pro Biden video, you motherfucker. I mean, it's just, you know,
that's the thing. Yeah, it seems like you have a weak case if you need to like shame and guilt people into believing what you believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it just seems like,
oh, absolutely,
you don't really have a strong case.
Well, and it's like an entire campaign that's like selling its product. Every case in favor of Biden is always comparing him to something else that's less desirable. It's never like let's vote for Biden on his own merits. It's always like, well, at least he's not, you know, at least voting for Biden isn't as bad as having electrodes attached to your testicles. Like that's like the essence of every Biden argument. And it's
Vote
and there's
Biden.
something.
It's better than being punched in the face repeatedly.
right. Exactly. I would buy that T-shirt, to be honest.
In that little pack. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's not a bad one. Like, I mean, that's borderline like a weird thing. We can stop talking about this.
Can we make there's a fine line between making ironic jokes and shilling for the Biden campaign store.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
maybe
I mean,
we're getting there.
It started out in questionable places already. But like at this point, I think like if I do want the no malarkey pin, that's not a bad pin.
Yeah, I'm not even ashamed of that.
I'd wear it ironically, like obviously. I actually am a fan of malarkey.
I was just gonna say, make no mistake, I'm wearing that ironically because I'm a malarkey lord.
I want more malarkey, not no malarkey. I want more malarkey.
Or the young Joe Biden black tank top, which is a screen printed image of young Joe Biden.
Is that the one on the beer cozy?
Probably. So I didn't know they had a koozie version as well.
Yeah, they have a cozy. They have.
Oh God, yeah. It's the same one, but it's got the like beach background rocking with it too. It's like just a square image printed on a tank top.
That's pretty sweet.
Keep it cool, kid.
Keep it cool, kid. And then there's cheers, champ.
Yeah. I take one with Hunter Biden on it.
With his dick.
No, give me a nude Hunter Biden on a koozie. Thank you. I'll take it. I will take that to every family gathering I can. Be like, I'm voting for Biden, guys. This is his son.
Okay, so all right, so I'm actually glad you brought that up. I want to. I get caught up on making fun of left wingers online a lot, and
Why? Why would you do that?
I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing in that way, but I will say,
is there a you to Fash pipeline?
oh man, I have to imagine, right?
There better be.
There's at least a Fed post to movie Bob pipeline, but
oh my god!
Yeah. And functionally,
worst kind of fascism.
It's like one extra step, but no, I'll say this Hunter Biden foot job narrative has been nourishing to me. It has
been a gift.
So first of all, it's funny, but also just watching, I know Drew made a pretty solid post about this, watching right-wing media just completely fucking debase themselves, acting as if it's pathetic, man. It's fucking pathetic. And I know that they've staked out their claim on having, media critical narratives for their politics, right? But oh man, this has been so nice watching them just, like I said, just fucking debase themselves, needing to, these guys go to college and they think of themselves as protectors of Western civilization or whatever. And they're just eating the scraps of a fucking foot job sex tape off the floor. I love this.
Well, yeah, I tuned it out.
Well, the thing is, though, there's supposed to be minors involved with his laptop and that, and also possibly the video. So I think that's kind of their bombshell that they're trying to.
Well, we're not
with.
at that point in the narrative yet, though. And I'll say the second that comes out, obviously,
No, it came out. It's just been so it came out on Lauren Witzke, who's running for Congress or Senate or something. She's a right-wing pundit, and she leaked that someone that's close to the investigation, blah blah blah, can confirm that there were 7 minors, including Senator Coon's daughter, which is the daughter of the senator that old Joe, Sleepy Joe Biden, was creeping on last year and got a bunch of media attention. Now, who knows if that's fully accurate? I'm willing to believe it just now based on just my feelings towards Joe Biden and the Democrats.
You want to believe it.
I don't have the same feelings towards Hunter Biden as I do Joe Biden, though. I think that Hunter Biden...
No, but I mean,
Hunter Biden...
he's involved with it all. He's wrapped up into all of it.
For sure.
He benefited from the Bidens and his crony, neoliberal buddies installing a new regime in Ukraine. And then now Hunter Biden gets to be on a board and have money and, whatever. So, I mean...
I think that he needs to start an OnlyFans.
Even though he smokes crack.
He'd make way more money starting an OnlyFans and should do exactly that.
Right.
Is this why they're calling it the laptop from hell? Is that what Trump was talking about? All this shit?
Yes.
Yeah,
they're calling it that.
Q.
Well, there was also the original post that I saw was them also talking about there was video of him raping and then physically torturing in some way Chinese kids or something like that. And I don't know. To be honest, I had kind of dismissed it. I haven't completely discounted it, but yeah, I mean, I guess I am talking about this, just kind of waiting for that to be confirmed.
Trust the plan,
for the other shoe to
Trust
drop.
the plan.
Exactly.
Trust the plan.
Yeah. Where we go one, we go all, baby.
Yeah.
I was watching 60 Minutes right before this, and Trump was on, and so he was talking to that broad on 60 Minutes, the old bitch with the white hair, and she's like, "Oh, Trump, you've referred to me and 60 Minutes and us as the fake news media. Why do you do that?" And he's like, "Yeah, because y'all are just fake." And she's like, "Yeah, but what about you talking about how Joe Biden and his family has benefited from Russian oligarchs and Chinese oligarchs overthrowing this in Ukraine?" He's like, because that happened."
Well, it's repeatedly
them.
It's just repeatedly stepping on a rake. Why are you asking these questions? It's surely you know the answer.
They don't know the answer though, because they refuse to look into it. How the media treats any of this shit. I said this about the laptop a few days ago. The narrative that the media wants out there is that Facebook and Twitter aren't doing enough about this story to quell it. Whereas if it was really their concern as journalists, Like they could spend time investigating the information on this thing, verifying if it's true or false, verifying what's there, what's not there. But that's not what they're doing. And it
right. Because they keep saying unverified. It's unverified. It's like, well, fucking verify it then.
Yeah, that's
Go
all they say.
verify it.
It's unverified. It's like, well, then, there's something you could do about that. I mean, it's the opposite of unverified.
It's like, so are half the stories that you run in your shit lib rag of a paper.
Right,
like,
exactly. Like, as if all their shit is verified.
Well, and literally,
like,
go back,
do your
go
job.
back to Bernie Sanders saying, quote unquote, saying that a woman can't be president. Like, that wasn't verified.
Right.
All the Russiagate shit. How much Russiagate shit was unverified, anonymous, or like, yo, come on.
Unverified.
None of it. It was all true. All completely true.
Unverified as opposed to
but that's in the interest of the American public.
Oh, go ahead. just at the height of fucking journalism. Well, the funniest thing too is like the best argument in favor of keeping these fucking institutions around is that they contain resources that allow them to fucking verify things, right? Like
exactly.
That enables them to do exactly what that is. And like the wheel hasn't been reinvented, so you still need resources to fucking do that. But instead, they're well, anyways. I mean, it doesn't take a
Facebook hasn't
done
done enough to censor.
Right.
Oh my god! And they get AOC on that bullshit. Like AOC's like grilling Zuckerberg and all this fucking.
Well, it's the fucking bullshit. It's the machine, fucking repurposing its own fucking right. issues, right? So they're kicking it up into propaganda hyperdrive, and so what they do, it's. I was just talking to my brother about this earlier. What they're doing is they've shit their pants. And they're pointing at the guy next to them saying that he shit their pants and that's where the smell's coming from. You need to acknowledge it.
Do you remember that video Trump posted where it's like some two babies like running up and hugging each other or something, and they were like, this is censored because this is doctored. This is a doctored video. This is not 100% true. It's not verified or whatever. And they're doing this with like everything. Like he tweets or right wingers tweet. They're just like, this is we got to take this down. This is unverified. It's clearly doctored. Like it's so clearly political, but obviously like the libs don't have an understanding of like they don't nothing in them questions media or authority. They're just built to believe all of it. Even though some of these people were Bernie supporters.
Yeah.
No, some of these people were Bernie supporters and they were like, yo, the news is fake news, fucking bullshit. But now that Bernie's lost, that's all forgotten.
They're the vanguard
now that's all forgotten. Yeah, it's all forgotten. Now like everything they say you believe and like they just have blind faith.
But it's important that you believe them now. It's important because Trump, we got to get him out.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, but it's just crazy.
Will take over if we don't believe him.
I feel like the reason these people never question authority is because they've grown up with this idea that trusting the process, trusting the market and all of that, like this authority must have at some point justified itself.
Yes.
And people bought into the idea or they bought into the product or they bought into whatever. And, it must be that like that's there for a reason. And that's why it's okay. And therefore, like we don't question why. We just we assume that because the process put it there that it's good.
When you're questioning,
it's like divine rights. It's like, yo, you wouldn't just be king.
Yeah,
like,
it's the invisible hand as God, basically.
Right.
Yeah, it's when you're questioning the practices of the New York Times, you're not just questioning this article. You're questioning decades and decades of prestige, right? Who are you?
Right.
Who are you to question this huge legacy, right?
And yet, everybody knows that they lied about weapons of mass destruction. All the lefties supposedly know this, but none of them fucking remember it past. They have the memories of fucking goldfish, and nobody remembers this shit.
Right.
Aren't we supposed to be the ones like not we? Sorry, aren't leftists supposed to be the ones who like fucking call that shit out? And now like they just blindly believe everything the media says, like
just
on COVID, on everything.
Shoes on the other foot.
Well,
now.
Joe Biden wasn't my first choice, but
well, but we got to vote out heckin' fascism, okay? So
yeah, we have to vote out the fascist dictator because that's how fascism works. You get a fascist dictator, and then you can just vote him out if you don't like him.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't like
and then in 4 years we can get our first choice in, which is Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. As far as fascism, what's more authoritarian than somebody who had 3% in the fucking primary, who couldn't even go in her own state being president without like, compared to Trump,
this
like
is,
that's
she won't
way
get a
more
single vote, and she
authoritarian.
probably will be president.
How the fuck she get there? Yeah. Based off like what, like less than 5%? what the fuck? That's crazy. Like, I just don't.
Well,
I don't
and
get
then-
it.
and
I
this-
don't. I don't get it.
Well, and then
Yeah, but we
this-
can save democracy by voting for Biden.
Exactly, right. And this is the other thing. It's like it's the like you shit your pants, and so then you accuse the other guy of shitting their pants. Like
Yes.
this whole like we need to protect our democracy, right? Which is like I'm watching the debate, right? And like I don't want to make it sound like I'm holding too much water for Trump here, but like when he gets asked these questions of like, these leading questions of like, will you concede the results, and like you're very undemocratic and all that, it's like there isn't really a way to adequately answer any of these fucking questions about like criticisms towards him about being anti-democratic without giving like at least like a 15-minute long answer about like, well, let me explain to you what the CIA and FBI have been doing the last 4 years and how there's been like a coup going on there. Like you can't, and then also like that would just lose. You can't say that, right? And so
Well, they cut his mic.
Well, right,
Yes.
exactly. No, then a little
he's the
red
one
dot,
doing fake news.
a little red dot would appear on his forehead, and then
Right.
If he went all fucking like network on everybody, yeah, the red dot would appear for sure.
right.
No, it's true. They just accuse him of fake news. They're just like, no, you're fake news. It's like that's the best they can come up with. Like, there's no.
That's what they do.
Yeah, it's the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Like,
exactly.
if he does say a lie, what they do is it's like, well, I fact checked you, and that has 4 Pinocchios, Mr. Trump. Checkmate. And it's like, is that a checkmate? Like, you literally just called him fake news after he called you fake news. Like, that's you having a toddler fight, actually.
Right.
And then think about how childish that just unit or like of measurement is. Pinocchios. Yeah, it's got 4 Pinocchios.
I
Who is
hate
this
it
for?
so much.
We're in a fucking baby world. We're in a fucking baby world where like just the people that are actually like forming the doors of our perception and the narratives in our fucking culture just think we're big fucking babies and everything's designed for babies.
The fascist is a Cheeto, like it's a snack for a child.
Yeah. They might be
You
right.
have to get
They
the
might be
Cheeto
right.
out. You know, those delicious
Chester Cheeto's evil twin.
Yeah.
Frito Lay had a good deal with the CIA. What is this? Brooklyn Dad? One of these reply guys that Trump has, and he's just like going around shilling his literal fucking children's picture book that's just the president as a baby. Like you can't even make fun of these people in a way that's better than what they're already doing themselves.
No, absolutely. Like, it's so absurd. Like, okay, so like I think that the president as a baby book is funnier than like do you remember the Hillary Clinton growing up? Like, that's Hillary, but I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there's a Hillary Clinton like picture book showing how she grew up and how there were like men who were in her way at every single point.
And they had Jackie Robinson.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Like, Jackie Robinson was somehow more privileged than Hillary Clinton. Like, I guess because he overcame like racism to be a fucking a Major League Baseball player, like because he overcame like I'm sorry, that just melts my brain.
I'll tell you right there. And this is actually I say it with a heavy heart because it spells disaster for the Fed Post. But black dudes, your days are numbered as far as being in a desirable position in the pecking order.
Too good for too long.
You're the weak link. You're the one that's destroying black women and black everybody else. You're the weak link.
Absolutely. And so we're one of those stealth bombers, right? That's all like angular and everything. We're flying under the radar because we have ablation here. Okay, right? I hate to break it to you though, socioeconomically, Asians losing ground quick, and black guys, let me tell you, at the very least, these hoteps haven't been doing any favors. So our fucking cloaking device is about to go on the fritz here pretty soon. Okay.
Yeah, my Asian privilege is dropping. I'm slipping into Asian fascism, like Movie Bob said. Like it's all about to happen.
Has Movie Bob talked about?
Obviously,
is your other Asian half Japanese?
Wait, what?
You said slipping into fascism, so I asked if your Asian half is Japanese.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe.
Neolibs really
Yeah, I mean,
really like Abe though, right? So you could still
Yeah, they love Shinzo Abe. I mean, he's kind of a neolib fascist because like Japan is kind of like a neoliberal utopia in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it's with nationalism added in.
Right, that's and no, exactly. Oh, there's still like an ethno state, so they just have the worst of both worlds because no one's fucking and they don't have any children.
Yeah, exactly. They're all atomized in their apartments, alone, jacking off just constantly.
To tentacle porn.
To like underwear that they bought last week at a corner, which they were desperately like socially anxious about doing.
Right. Mishima is just crying from heaven right now.
No, I just, this is the thing about this media thing was like, like the fact checking shit. Like, I remember when Bernie would be like, oh yeah, there's 75 million uninsured or whatever. They'd be like, this is actually 3 Pinocchios because technically it's 40 million underinsured. They're not all uninsured. Most of them are underinsured. You know what I mean? Like they get away with shit like that where it's just like, I don't know. How can you really like respect these people? Like it's clearly political at that point where you're like, all right, you know what the fuck you meant.
When you're the media, they just let you do it.
Right.
Well, because you own the means of production. Like that's the whole class thing. Like you just bring it back to that, and it's understandable immediately.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I really want them to like give out 69 Pinocchios at some point.
No, they'll give that to
that would be the point where like you have to decide whether or not like it's total bullshit or not, because like you're like 69 Pinocchio, that's a lot, and it's also a funny number. Like I don't know if they're really taking this as seriously as I thought they were.
Wait, do they think I'm a moron at this point?
Exactly. Like that's the point. That's the point where you start asking that question.
Right.
Am I?
So yeah, they had me at 68 Pinocchios, but here they are at 69, and I don't know.
Are they gonna go that far? Are they really gonna do that? Are they gonna dome or some shit?
They'll wheel out the 69 Pinocchios for the Hunter Biden laptop when they finally report on it. It's 69. It's 69 pedophilic Pinocchios.
Yeah. It's rooted in Hunter Biden's laptop is rooted in pedophilia.
It's rooted.
Yeah.
No, legitimately, the Democrats are rooted in pedophilia. It's not a bug.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, they're fundraising networks. Oh God.
These people are sick.
We can't put out any of this now. We can't put out any of this now. This is fucked. We're gonna have the belly of the beast.
It'll be like it'll be like the Adolf Reed Chapo episode. Our Peter Coffin episode just magically disappeared. I think CRK mismanaged it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, too many red dots. Yeah.
We actually reached 69 Pinocchios with this episode.
I mean, I don't know how to talk people out of these fucking to me, it's just like you haven't been fucked by authority, so of course you blindly trust it. Especially like the PMC people, like they'll be like, "Oh, New York Times endorsed Warren and Klobuchar. I think that's really gonna turn things around." I'd be like, "You're a fucking idiot." When they put that out, I was like, "Yo, they think I'm a fucking moron. They think I'm retarded." And then this fucking idiot at my job is like, "Oh yeah, I think." I'm like, "Oh shit, they're right. They're not assuming we're retarded like we are retarded, or at least these people are. Like the libs are. Like,
well, their audience, the paying public is
right.
It's
to subscribe.
They buy it. They're fine with it. They're like,
yeah, imagine you
women,
subscribe to
that's
the New York
twice
Times.
as many women as they've ever done before.
Yes, binders full of women.
Where were you? Yeah. Where were you the morning that New York Times published their endorsement of Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just glad living at the end of history. I'm glad that things are still shaken up. I got to witness the New York Times endorsing 2 women. I'm part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw how much that moved the needle. That really, fucking changed everything after that.
It was incredible.
What's
You
even
better
funny,
get used to hearing
they
it.
didn't even endorse the one that became the VP.
Yeah.
They picked the 2 white women that fucking lost the VP slot.
Yeah, that's obvious.
It's fucking hilarious. I think Kamala dropped out by then. I think
she
she was
did.
doing so fucking shitty that she
because there's no
dropped out that
videos.
early.
There's no videos.
Yeah, she dropped out.
No,
She was doing so fucking bad. She didn't even make it to that whole reality show with the New York Times fucking reptiles.
Who was the black guy that like was just
with the glasses?
No, not even him. More.
No, the guy from the New York Times, the
reporter, right?
Yeah,
the glasses.
I don't even mean that. I mean, Deval Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the redheaded stepchild of the primary. I'm pretty sure Deval Patrick had a fucking New York Times video, and Kamala Harris didn't. I could be wrong. I'm almost positive. I'm googling that.
There was like 2 weeks where people like libs I knew were like, "Wow, this Deval Patrick guy, he reminds me of Obama." It's like, oh, why? Why does he remind you of Obama? That's funny.
Yeah, could you please list the reasons that he reminds you of Obama? I would appreciate like a little bit of detail in why you're saying that.
What about his body of policy?
Specifically because he's black or no?
yeah.
Is that it? Because it's it.
And I'm a class reductionist, so I don't even see race, to be honest. But
yeah, I don't see color. I'm working with the MLK thought.
Fuck.
Bernie's class reductionist take from that. Absolutely.
Yo, dude. We were talking about that because, as soon as everybody was going against these white trash people, they like racism over their own, their own economic well-being.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder what the guy you stand for thinks about that. Like, I don't even stand for him that hard. I turned on him right away. Like, you still stand for him, and you don't even know what the fuck he believes. Like, what the fuck? Like,
that was
stupid, man.
that was like his most controversial thing he said in the primary, right?
I was surprised he said it. When I watched it, I was like, I can't believe he's saying this shit. You're not allowed to say this shit.
It was cool.
I was completely
he
surprised.
Mentioned some sort of half support for Cuba too, and that was just like his death wish.
Yeah, it's
if you say that shit, that's it. You're done.
Right, and that's been bared out, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like these people. Yeah, they've if authority and the system has fucked you enough times, you don't need to be convinced to distrust them. But if you're benefiting from it, then you'll just blindly regurgitate everything.
Well, see, what's
say.
so
not
dumb
really
is so many of those. What's so dumb is so many of those people. They're like downwardly mobile. Like they're in a precarious position, and they don't even fucking realize it because they've had the silver spoon in their mouth the whole fucking life. And they're one or two bad turns from being in exactly the same situation as all of the people that they look down on. And it's like, how do you not see this? How do you not understand this? Like, do you really just trust the process to that extent?
Yeah, JP Morgan firing people that are like seasoned veterans at their company, on a dime because they see they got the text that the lib pandemic's happening next year. They're like, oh, we gotta fucking roll some heads right now, and they just drop motherfuckers. They don't even let them say goodbye to anybody. I've heard of this shit from people who work there. Why are you so trusting of the system? They'll drop you in a hot second.
They don't give
I don't
a
understand
shit.
that.
I mean, I think a big part of that is just reacting to, I don't know, just the hollowed out nature of culture in our world now, right? I don't know if you want to call it liquid modernity or neoliberal late capitalism or whatever, but I
want to call it incel paradise.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it?
Wait, are we talking about Japan again?
We might as well be.
I was just gonna say the culture of isolating and Ichi the killer shit. But anyways, fucking yeah. I mean,
people try to say that this COVID shit is I hear people be like, this is the thing that's going to show people that neoliberalism it's such a bad ideology. It is justifying the worst stuff. And it's no, it is the neoliberal utopia. This is the thing that they've been trying to train people for, and they couldn't get people into their houses. And then this fucking thing happens, and they're like, oh fuck, we really need to take advantage of this. This is the thing that we get to do our shit with.
Right.
This is neoliberalism strengthening its grip.
Yeah. Literally,
it's a neolib's wet dream.
Literally, everyone is getting a pass to be able to stay at home, stay in their PJs forever, get Uber Eats, and not have to come up with an excuse for flaking on plans with everybody else.
Well, to be fair, not everyone.
Well,
of course not everybody.
Well, yeah, but even then, I mean, people that do have to go to work, like me and the people I live with and everything, you're still facing pressures to minimize the amount of time you're spending out.
You're
and
not
shit
supposed,
like that.
and you're supposed to
Dude.
spend less leisure time. You're supposed to, like, your leisure time is supposed to be Netflix now. And not that
Oh,
it
you
wasn't
wanna-
before.
yeah.
It was supposed to be that before, but
Well, it's not just leisure though, Peter.
Here in-
It's self care. It's self care,
yeah.
and
Well,
we're just
you're
gonna
doing
real
labor.
conspiratorial because you get real conspiratorial because like your job is the work-life balance. They've been blurring that shit for years, and now
Yes.
it's perfectly blurred. That was the first thing that hit me when this whole remote thing started. Was like, damn, it's like perfectly blurred now. Everybody's atomized. That's exactly what they want. And yeah, like you said, this e-commerce shit that was already on the way in, and all the retail brick and mortar shit that was already on the way out. Like this is perfect. Like everything is like perfect. Which is why
Well, and
I
then
don't think it's shock doctrine.
those who aren't working from home and they aren't having that blur are still having it blurred in a different way, like on the opposite side of the coin, which is they're going to work and that's the only time that they're going out if they're not supposed to be gathering with friends. Like here in Denver, you're not supposed to gather with people that aren't in your household for more than 5 people. They've cut it down to 5 people gatherings.
Yes.
It's crazy.
So it's either
Jesus.
you're stuck in that, which is hell, or you literally, like, people used to complain in the 1990s, I live at the office. Now you actually live at the office. Like the office is your house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This is whole this whole perfect condition is like a neolib's wet dream. Like it's really fostering the echo chambers, the anxiety, the paranoia. And that was something I wanted to talk about with Peter with getting people out of their respective echo chambers, and that's idpol in a lot of senses to me. It's like people being tucked away in their own little groups. And people I've met who've been like in rad fams or black separatist or any one of these white separatists, like like COH here, who's a black separatist. Yeah. All these people who've just been in these like bubbles and like they consume a lot of fucking media and get in these echo chambers, like blocking people who don't agree with them or just disassociating, and they get fucking buried deep in just this one track of thinking, and everything around them reinforces it. And it's something that I think the number one thing, like in terms of people ask for like a prescription, I think the number one thing is how to fucking disentangle that shit. I feel like you do a good job of like thinking about how to like disentangle that, how to get people out of that hole. And I'm just wondering, like, what do you think about that? Like, what goes into your approach for like how you make the videos or how you just discuss politics in general, as far as like shifting people out of that, knowing that that's the conditions they're in? Like,
well, what I generally do is I'm coming at the entirety of like everything going on. Like the video that I'm writing right now is on Zoom fatigue. It's about, and it's ultimately going to be about alienation. But
right.
The thing that I try to come at everything from like, how is ideology forming people's opinion on this issue? Like my ultimate goal is to dismantle ideology, because ideology is it's essentially the system justification. It's why the system is allowed to persist. It's why people buy into it. When we have, like, for instance, when you go to the supermarket and you buy things, like, you're participating in a consumer market, and on some level you're accepting the ideology that this entire system works on. With like the echo chambers and stuff, like it's fandom, like it's basically the same thing as Star Wars or Steven Universe or whatever. Like feminism is the same thing, like in the brain to that type of a person, or whatever liberal thing, particularly liberal things, I think. But at the conservative stuff, it's more, I think, generalized, but it's still the same thing. Like conservatism is a fandom, whereas in liberalism is kind of a fandom, but the real fandoms are like feminism, particularly the people who like the white fragility book, that type of shit.
Managers.
Managers. Yes.
Tendencies,
But that's where it ultimately comes from. It is a managerial approach. Like what you're doing is segmenting the market into manageable segments. Obviously, that's the root of the word.
Divide and conquer shit.
You're segmenting everything so that it's manageable. Like it's so that like, this group has very specific concerns and will apply stuff that does not approach some other group's concerns, because they're supposed to stay in their lane, the feminist lane, the white fragility lane, whatever. And it keeps everything away from each other, and you don't solve anything. And really, to me, I think the only way that you can beat any of that is by taking the whole ideological project, breaking it down, showing how it works, and attempting to explain it in normal terms, like not just deconstructing it, but also demonstrating it in very plain terminology.
Absolutely.
And second, it's really just encouraging people to both care about their communities as well as their own self-interests. Like if you can merge the idea of community and with self-interest, like that person is going to start moving in a direction that is anti-authority, elite, like a populist direction, basically. Right. And if you approach that from the perspective, like I want to advocate for a world where, you know, workers own the means of production, or, you know, we don't make commodities, we make items and they don't have exchange values because we're not exploiting labor, blah, blah, blah. Like you could get into a lot of theory bullshit if you really wanted to there. But if you start talking about wanting a fair world, which is another way of saying all this, like people buy into that better than if you're doing the theory version of it. So really what it is it's breaking things down into plain language, speaking to people on their own terms, and understanding that people are flawed. And if you can take all three of those things into account, I feel like people sort of naturally move in a better direction. Yeah. I don't know that it's, you know, something that is completely reliable with every single human being you're ever going to see, but we don't necessarily need every single human being to understand that, like, their interests actually matter over the elite's interests.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
It's important to
go ahead.
It's important to think of your audience.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Especially if it's on like a personal level, because like as a good materialist or as a good Marxist or as a whatever, you want to be able to look at their material circumstances and be able to relate whatever their specific grievances are back to the whole and back to the general full system, which is capitalism, which is driving any type of like in the culture that is caused by and developed through and nurtured by capitalism, so like neoliberal hegemony, and all of that is what's causing all of these small externalities. So being like sound in theory and being able to look at someone's material circumstances and relate them back, because you're also sound in theory with your framework of understanding the whole, is important. And like coming at people with just trying to squeeze them, no matter where they're at, into one specific framework, it's just not going to work. It's just like not a materialist frame. Like
we have to understand that people are going to be heterodox no matter what. Like there's no, like, the target audience should be the Joe Rogan listener rather than the already converted, already radical left person and the you know, reactionary friend that person has who might listen to them.
Right. Because I have some friends that are like Rogan, like normies that are apolitical, and like I only know if what I'm saying makes any sense if it clicks with them. And that's why what you were saying about like not being pretentious, like that is very important to me. And like when we do the show, or like when I like try to tweet about some dense shit, like very important to me to not be esoteric, because there's a lot of leftists that like very heady, very, you know, ivory tower, and just like, if what their audience is like, you know, people like them, academics or whatever. It's like, dude, that's a small fucking pool. You need, if you really want to fucking, if you're trying to do anything that'll be broader, your audience needs to be bigger than that, and it has to be accessible to get to them. You know what I mean?
And that's the big primary thing we need to think about is accessibility. I get people who will say like your videos aren't accessible, but here's the interesting thing. I don't get that from people who, like, I get tons of messages from like conservatives, like especially I made a video called Liberalism Sucks, which breaks down the sort of liberalism as the justifying ideology of capitalism mystique.
Right.
And I've gotten a ton of conservatives who have messaged me saying like, I haven't thought about it this way, and I kind of think you're right. Like, it's something that like it lands with normal people, but like with these ivory tower liberal people, are like, you use too many big words. And it's like, no, I don't, because if I have to use a big word, I fucking include the definition of the big word right after or right before the fucking thing. So it's like, no, no, I don't do that. Like, I make sure that like anything that I can say is not, or it's at least contextualized in a manner that anyone, or at least anyone who I think that I understand how to reach, could understand it. And I think that it's just bullshit that like people are like, well, there should be more theory videos. It's like every single video is a fucking theory video. There's no such thing as one that isn't. Like, they're all theory videos.
Yeah. No, I could tell from your videos that you take special care with that. I think that's very important. It kind of goes in line with like what COH has been talking about, and I've been talking about, like, he talks about like recontextualizing theory, you know what I mean? And like the idea of like, I used to just be like, I don't want to talk about anything cultural, anything idpol at all.
Yeah.
And people being like, dude, you can't, you're not going to click with anybody like that. And that's very true. I mean, it's too cerebral. It is true. You really, the fact is like, and COH was kind of pointing me to this, is like, you need to know your audience, meet them where they're at, and convert their idpol cultural grievances into something material. And that, you know, that's what I've been trying to do more lately. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the thing that sucks is you have to understand that everybody is idpol. Like every single person.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether they're working class and literally like blue overalls, carrying a big silver wrench on their back, going into a factory and doing the work every fucking day. Well, that's idpol, what I just described right there. Like they view themselves like the working class is an identity. And it's like, it's not. Like that's really not what it is, but they view it that way. And you have, like, even to reach that kind of a person, you have to have some kind of understanding of how identity has pervaded as a sort of ideological way to subsume like class concerns. And it's not that I don't think identity is like important. I think that like a lot of the concerns that people have regarding identity are important, but I also think that the concerns that, or the problems that they suffer, there are literally fully from like an ideology that is disseminated by a ruling class, which ultimately we could resolve at least some element. Yeah, exactly. At least some element can be resolved by not having a ruling class that can disseminate that ideology. Like, will it go away immediately? Right. No, but like we're on the way if we start doing stuff like that, or minimizing the credibility of a ruling class, et cetera, et cetera. But
absolutely.
I mean, even just saying that, though, like that's sort of redirecting the idpol type concerns into class politics, because ultimately, like they are all actually rooted in some form of class politics. Like the problems that they exist in are far more universal than they're led to believe. But like the ideology that they're oppressed by identity, just it tends to exacerbate it. But again, it's manufactured and disseminated, and people accept it, and the fact that that happens is why the identity is targeted for, you know, to become a pressure release valve of some sort. Like it makes an acceptable target to put the worst elements of the capitalist system.
No, I was just going to say also, and this is like, you know, maybe like a little more lighthearted, but I do think there's something to be said for, you had said like, you know, you had mentioned like populism a little bit, and like, you know, we all occupy the alternative media lane a little bit, and like questioning a lot of these
orthodoxies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the cool things about that you also get to lean into is the fact that like we get to be people's crazy uncles, and like the New York Times exists to discipline people. Yes. I don't record podcasts to discipline people at all.
No.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
At all. I want people to interface with the political basically the way I see it. And like you had said, you know, personal interest and all that. I want you to look at politics as a bag of money that everybody's got their hands placed on, that they're pulling in their direction. And I want you to place your hands very firmly on that. And I want you to pull it in your direction. Right? And I don't want you to add any more abstractions than need be on top of that. I want you to pull it in your direction. And like, and again, like we get to be, you know, wacky, you know, everybody's fun uncle, right? I mean, that's kind of what Trump has going a little bit, which I will say, I think, you know, him trotting out the line of like, well, I'm not a politician again recently is funny, and kind of like how like disingenuous it is, but it's also very smart, to be completely honest.
Oh, absolutely.
I would totally.
Well, even though he's been president for a number of years, like you can't make the claim that anybody else has managed to be like Trump. Like he can at least claim to be unique, which makes the claim of not being entirely like a politician have some weight to it, even though he technically is the president of the United States. Like that's not a good dunk on that. Like it doesn't really work because he's such a like insane figure. Really, like sure, that's not what you expect from a politician. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and like I think when we were talking to like Twink Rev guys, I remember they kind of like asked like, hey, what's kind of your deal? And I had said like, well, you know, we're just like just a few Joe six packs just talking about talking about politics. And like on one hand, that is absolutely a cop-out defense that I can deploy whenever anybody is like, well, you're saying things that are patently untrue. Because I am not as well read as a lot of fucking people are. And to be honest, I love that defense. But also
Same.
again, like
I lean on that.
I think that there is something to be said for like, if you are populist or populist-esque or something like that, and you actually believe what you're preaching, which I would hope you do, there's kind of like a truth will set you free component to that a little bit. Like what we're saying is how we just see the facts, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have some agenda to discipline. And now I'm repeating myself. So I'll give someone else the turn to talk.
No, I think that you've come full circle here, though, because that's exactly what it is. Like, what I'm doing when I write a video, I'm like, my video right now is called, like, tentatively called, Dang This Zoom Fatigue to Heck. I'm writing that because I've saw a bunch of people say the following phrase repeatedly: Zoom fatigue is real. And I saw that happen on Twitter. Like, you know, I saw it several times in a couple of days. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I looked into it, and I think it's some form of marketing. I don't necessarily know that it's Zoom that's doing it. And like, I'm irritated by that. And that's why I'm doing this. It's not because I want, like, you know, like people to like me. I'm irritated by the phrase Zoom fatigue is real. And I'm sure that there's a lot of underlying stuff that I can find out that is related to that. But like, ultimately, yeah, my agenda is just like, I thought about a thing and I want to say it.
You're not getting paid by Skype to do this, to
No.
do a job on fucking Zoom?
No,
I'm going to, there's an area where I'm insulting them as well. So
the only
Yeah.
fucking driving force that there is to like chart the human condition in our modern world right now, it's just ways to immediately translate that into a fucking viral marketing campaign. And so you get like little fucking cutesy phrases that are all like, oh, you know, we're all in this together. Zoom fatigue, isn't that relatable? We're all just.
Here's the thing about Zoom fatigue. I think like it's Zoom fatigue is real is the thing that they've got everybody saying, and like it's evoking the idea of the struggle is real, and it's like it's kind of in a way like evoking the grind, and like you're at it, you're admirable for trying, and it's like I kind of hate that.
shit.
I really fucking hate that. It's like
Yeah, it's PMC
aspirational.
shit.
Yeah, it's PMC
Yeah,
shit.
exactly.
It's for them.
Well, I'll even just say though that like I'm sure that is real to a lot of people's experiences. I just don't like that. Like again, like the only context in which we do relate with one another and be like, oh man, like, you really fucking hate these Zoom calls. I really hate these fucking Zoom calls. Is all fucking market researched, filed off edges, fucking internet marketing, fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it's all prepackaged and like with an agenda and like with a market, niche market, and echo chamber that you're trying to hit, and like I think that's why people like our show. Yeah, I think people like our show and like our candidness that Slav's talking about is because like we disagree with shit. I wanted to do this because I wasn't really hearing like a lot of leftists just say shit in a candid way that wasn't like very like prepared or whatever. And like, you know, I mean, like I think we have people that like are from all ends of the spectrum that like the show, like libertarian, like leftist, like neo-lib globe emojis. They like that. They like the show because like I feel like they say, you know, it's very candid, it's very like real. You know what I mean? I think that's the big thing.
There's
like,
literally
you don't
never
really hear this shit.
There's literally never been a moment on this show where I wasn't making up the bullshit coming out of my mouth as I was saying it.
That's the thing. It's organic as opposed to like, you know, you hear these shows and then you know they come on and they've got like a set agenda that they all have to agree on. And it's like you hear us fucking argue about shit in real time. Like we'll just be like, no, I don't fuck with that shit. Like it's way more like a real conversation you might actually have in real life. You know what I mean?
Well,
and
I
it's just
said that
like,
you guys and Twink Rev are my favorite podcasts for a reason.
Hey, salute.
Like the reason I said that though with you guys is I don't always agree with everything you guys say, but every single I listen to every episode because I'm interested. Like if it is something I disagree with, it's usually presented in a way where I feel like it's real. It makes me think about it. It makes me wonder about like where it's coming from. And like I wish that there was more of that. I honestly like
Yes.
I want to have to think about like what somebody who disagrees with me, where they're coming from, why they think the things that they think. Because like if I spent my entire fucking day on Twitter just like agreeing with people, which is obviously not what I do on Twitter, if anybody follows me there, I don't spend a lot of time agreeing with people.
Yep.
But if I did that, there are people that exclusively use Twitter for that, and when they get like disagreed with, they like lose their minds because they don't know how to operate in a manner where that is acceptable to disagree. Like disagreeing is a moral failing, and it's not like a just a difference of opinion or a difference of perspective, like where they see their material interests differently. And to use the metaphor that you were saying, the pulling the bag of money, I think that like if we actually got past all of the dumb rhetoric, I think we'd end up finding that most people are pulling the money in the same direction. And, and that's ultimately where I'm coming from. Like, I do think that there's a lot of disagreement among the working class as to like, the morality of certain things like abortion or like why people are racist, what racism is, like what bits of like, I think that a lot of it's very dumb too. I look at it and I think like, how did you come to this? But at the same time, if you asked them if they wanted a raise at work, they'd say yes. If you asked them if they wanted to be able to pay their rent, they'd say yes. And if you could pay rent, it's contingent on everybody else being able to pay rent or getting a raise or whatever. Very obvious, like working class version of, like some kind of assistance program. They would say yes.
Yeah.
And it would help everybody and nobody would complain about it.
Right. When I talk to like these different IDPOL groups, like all the things that their grievances come to the same solution really, because it's like there'll be a white nationalist segment that's like, oh, these immigrants are taking my job and all that. It's like, your job being taken away is fucked. Like that's bad. Like, but you should focus on the fucking corporations. If you have a class versus agenda, you'd be addressing the thing that's ruining your life, and it wouldn't be the immigrants that would solve that.
Who is powerful enough to make the decision that ruins your life is the question that people need to be trained to ask.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with women's issues, black people's issues. Like every group is the same thing. Like women's issues, like a lot of their the inequality or the social inequality is because of like economic disadvantage to men, and then being in situations where you're dependent on men. If you have economic freedom and your base needs are covered, you'll be less dependent on these situations where you might be in domestic violence or these fucking toxic relationships or whatever. Well, you'll be less in those situations.
I mean, you can really even point at research with the domestic violence one. Like so much of that, like they tie to financial. Like it's a financial, like there is like the woman out of the man and woman pairing has like either no job or a part-time job, while the man has like a full-time job or a well-paying full-time. Like they're always in a financially better, not always, but like most of the time in a financially better position. And it's just like, the numbers are there. You can literally look at them at any, like you can just look up studies on like Google Scholar and shit, and it can tell you that stuff. But like the other thing is I would ask anyways, why don't people do that? And it's like, well, I mean, they've got shit to do.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's caught up in their own. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, they're caught up in their own identities problems. But like, if they were to realize that all these problems, same thing with black people and crime being rooted to poverty and police being an arm of fucking capital to suppress it instead of
with
giving social services.
With George Floyd, what if instead of addressing, well, I mean, obviously addressing police violence is a good thing, but what if we were actually talking about the fact that he needed to pass a $20 bill that was counterfeit? Like,
exactly.
What if we said like, hey, what situation is this man in that he's doing that? Like, it most likely is going to lead us back to he doesn't have enough resources or money to live. Like, it's a simple answer.
Right, and the rich people of all these identity groups, like black women or white or whatever, like they usually can bypass a lot of these social restrictions because they have the economic freedom. They can bypass being in these situations that these other people end up in that look like them but are poor. So, I mean, you're all asking for the same thing, but if you only ask for your group's thing, you don't have the numbers.
Right, you're spread thin. You're spread thin.
You're spread thin, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, honestly, to be totally honest, like it's totally coincidental that like identity politics and whatever is an issue, right? It's just that it is distracting from the more important things. It's not that like I hate so much. I don't hate hate on its own, by its own merits, talking about race or gender or anything that much.
No, I don't
right?
either.
In
fact, I think that it's useful, like in the context that we've been talking about it, like if you're able to wire it back to the sort of class issues, like because they're not fake concerns.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
well,
not.
And I
they're
think,
real.
and,
It's just
and this is something I've been thinking about recently, that I think is kind of like maybe a teachable moment with this is COVID has become a culture war issue, has long since become a culture war issue now. And I think that we can kind of maybe, I mean, there's plenty of people where it's not a neutral space to discuss in a cool-headed manner, and I understand that, but maybe it's an opportunity to use it as an example to some people. I'm in the Seattle area, and around here we got Jay Inslee is our governor, and we got this fella Lauren Culp running in the Republican lane in the gubernatorial election. And there's this big ass billboard on my way home from work that I see every day. That's a Culp campaign poster or billboard that says with Inslee, masks are forever. Right. And I think I told you about this earlier, CRK, and it's just and it's incredible, especially to say nothing about the fact that like protecting small business and government control is like right in the lane of Republicans, and they just let that they just strike out on that. But like motherfucker, like the business I work for is about to go under. What are you talking about wearing a mask? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like you're drumming people up around an issue that doesn't fucking matter. Like concern lording people about masks is fucking stupid, and I hate it, and it's pathetic and embarrassing. But like the thing that's more pathetic and embarrassing is engaging those people and actually giving them a reason to fucking scold people. You're running your fucking gubernatorial election on I'm just not going to enforce masks. Like, what the fuck is this? This is absurd. And then I have one other example that I wanted to read something here because I was just talking to my girlfriend about this, and this is so fucking fascinating. She got a message, and I'm gonna explain this vaguely so that I don't get anybody in trouble, right? She got a message from her manager saying, paraphrasing, just a reminder, COVID cases are going up, weather's getting colder, be mindful of our bubble, please be thoughtful about places you go, people you see, and follow safe practices. These are hard times, but we need to do more to protect each other and to keep the business safe. And then, yes, and it goes beyond that. Texted one of her coworkers, the manager did, who's out of state in the Midwest right now, visiting her parents who are sick, not COVID related, and told her, "Hey, cases in that area you're in are up, so I really hope you're being safe because we got to worry about the company." And like just the incredible amount of layers of cuckoldry that are there, right? Just complete, it's not.
You really have to submit to your job here.
Yes,
like that's what's basically being said. Like you need to pledge fealty to your job in a way that you never have in the past. Or I mean,
that email is actually perfect.
If you go back
the
to
most
like
clear representation of the relationship between the boss and the employee. Like they don't care about you. Like they just care about what you as a laborer can do for their bottom line. So they want to protect you as a laborer so they can protect their bottom line. And so they're going to reach out and make sure you're safe so they can make sure their product is safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's also I was talking to her about, my girlfriend's like, well, I want to message back, and be like, well, like, our rights, in as far as this relationship goes and everything. And I'm like, you realize like you might just turn everyone against you because there is no consciousness around your identity as a worker and the power differential between you and your boss. But there's a hell of a lot of emphasis as I'm an enlightened leftist and I take, COVID seriously. Yeah. Right. And it seemed like such a perfect demonstration of the problem we're in on the left specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I think the COVID thing is bullshit. Like, it's hard for me to take it serious. So, like, as far as that culture war and, like, I guess, you know, everything you see in the timeline that's trending is just a lot of bullshit culture war that gets forgotten in like a couple months, you know what I mean? But like, as far as other culture war, like specific to idpo groups, like what Peter was saying, like, I don't think that stuff is necessarily a joke. If you lost your job to trade, right, that's real. Like, the thing the rad libs have to do is pretend that that's not real. It's not legitimate concern. They have to pretend like, oh, you're just sad you lost your white privilege and, you know, you're just crying about that, blah blah blah. Like, that's how they have to
do some fentanyl, you freaking white supremacists.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is like, they have to ignore the grievance, and that's the thing, is like,
Do some
you don't
fentanyl.
That's a jet black joke.
Just get on drugs, you piece of shit.
Don't tempt me.
No, I just feel like you shouldn't. You don't need to dismiss the grievance, but that's how everybody does. Is like, they have to dismiss everybody's grievances. Oh, women don't have to deal with this. Blacks don't have to deal with this. White people don't have to deal with this. Like, that's not the right approach. You have to acknowledge it, but then realize that their solution isn't really going to fix their shit. It's not really going to fix the problem because they're not really at the root of it.
Well, they're
So, you know what I mean? Like,
they're acting ideologically and also as a market actor, as a consumer, and
Exactly.
ultimately
Boom.
a consumer can't. The choices that are made by a consumer are never ever going to impact the market in such a way that power rearranges itself to those whims. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you buying Colin Kaepernick Nike shit is not going to fucking stop the cops from killing black people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, exactly.
And the culture is like again, like if she responded to like that message from her manager being like, hey, you know, like, my role as a worker, you know, is being impeded here, something like that. Like, that's going to sound like a fucking foreign language, because that lens of looking at things is always dead last, getting the short stick at the bottom of the list of priorities. Because again, like, how do you fucking market this? How do you prepackage this as an identity that people can buy into?
It's a good question. But I mean, the other thing is, it's not just that, like, there's no consciousness. It's also that the incentives are baked into that message that, like, you are, again, what I said, you need to pledge fealty to the business. And if you do not pledge fealty to the business, all of the other people who have pledged fealty to the business are perhaps at risk due to your actions.
Right.
You are, like, they will, like, the idea that they could all turn on that person, it's very real on account. You kind of have a market McCarthyism set up here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly also why, like, I've spent years working in like food service, and like the concept of tips is patently anti-worker, but at the same time, like, nobody's gonna want to give up their fucking tips. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because also,
and
tips
they've rigged it up
rock.
in such a way. Yeah, they've rigged it up in such a way that, like, the individual thing, like, when you get the thing that they're talking about individually, it feels good. Like, you get a good tip, you're like, that feels fucking great. I must have done my job really fucking good. But at the same time, that comes along with the assumption that when you don't get a tip, you start to blame yourself for that. So it never actually comes back to the people with power to say, like, hey, we're just going to pay you a living wage.
Right.
It's all on you. Like, it's brilliant. It's fucking like, every bit of it is brilliant. Or it's like the best coincidence ever for the ruling class. I don't know. It's one of the two, though.
I mean, it's always probably just a mix of both, right? It's a little.
I would agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Slav, earlier, I do want to just talk to a point you mentioned earlier about, you said identity politics is coincidental. I think more that it's definitely by design, because it's how, like, in capitalists, like, especially monopoly capital accumulation, to be a good capitalist or a good company or a good business, you have to be expanding into new markets constantly, creating new markets constantly.
Yes.
So the way that you can do that best is to create these niche identities, create these new markets that you can further divide and create more niche identities from within those, and then keep going down the rabbit hole that way. And as a byproduct and also an intended product is that you're dividing all the people too.
Yep.
So I don't know that it's necessarily coincidental as much as it is like, that's just the nature of how it's being pushed for a purpose of selling product and being able to continue to grow as far as monopoly.
I almost think that the
Yeah, it
best
is- it
word.
is
I
amazing.
almost think the best way of describing that is almost like mechanical, right? It's
Yeah.
it's.
I would call it
capital-
inherent.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, inherent, intrinsically involved.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I do I
Yeah.
do think that like there is I was thinking about this a couple minutes ago when I was enjoying my delicious chicken sandwich, and I was thinking about like I think that there's something fundamental in the human condition of you want to know yourself, right?
Yes.
To know the self is part of the adventure, right? And like,
Absolutely.
to sound like Jordan Peterson a little bit, and I had I've watched a good amount of your videos, and Peter, and I think that the way that you do talk about like identity is really on the fucking money, and I know that it's been
Thank
a big
you.
part. Oh yeah, and I know it's been a big part of my life. It's like saying like I breathe air, right? But like
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah.
and just to wrap up my point, just that as things get more and more atomized, and as people are left less and less satisfied with the state of their lives, and it's like what the end of Evangelion, like you need to
Oh
my
my God! Thank you for bringing this up. This is it. This is where we got to go.
No,
the end of Evangelion is literally like it is. You're 100% spot on for going there.
I literally watched like end of Evangelion like when I was like going through rehab, and it was this like formative moment for me. But like it's the you need something else to contrast yourself against, right? So like what is
Bingo.
up if there is no down, right? And so to know one's individual self is a communal act, right? And so as the community and as the solidarity and as the town square, I mean now it's kicking into hyperdrive, but as these things are drying up and going away, of course the consumer has a higher demand for knowing themselves and more ways of, I mean it's just identity categories that you can adopt in a vacuum.
Yeah, we see the left running fucking wild with that shit these days, and like,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is really amazing to what COH's point. Like, they got both. They got the divide and conquer, and they got these fucking new emerging markets to like
Bingo.
forever.
Yes,
just
exactly.
Keep financializing everything.
Which when we put it like this, like the kind of like old school, more like patriotic, we can call it nationalist or whatever, like American apple pie kind of conservatism that the American normie right does, is like gonna lose this fight in every single fucking circumstance, right? Because they're not gonna be able to as adequately adapt. Right. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Well, again, like I said earlier, like the conservative like fandom is a larger, more broad fandom, and therefore, if you think about it, ultimately they're going to be, when it comes down to it, eventually less fervent about it. And a lot of people say, no, the right wing is a lot more fervent about it, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Because if you get into an argument with like somebody on something very niche about their identity, I think you're going to find probably somebody who's willing to go much further than you think.
Yes.
I have seen people have stalked me. People have found my home address. People have done really fucked up shit just because I was like, no, I kind of prioritize this thing over that thing. And it's like people are fucking insane. And the more it becomes apparent that these sort of niche demographics are becoming like maybe the dominant mode as opposed to the this sort of more generalized conservative type fandom thing, I think that actually I know that because like people are making so much bank off of like dunking on SJWs at this point. Like SJW, that is that type of person, the really fervent, really nut job person, or something that's so incredibly niche to their own personal experience, or just like they're like feel as though they're a savior to people of that specific experience. And I don't know. I just think that ultimately, like I could probably go on forever about this exact thing because this is the thing that I care about probably the most. You cannot. Okay, so Donald Trump is president because the conditions to make a Donald Trump exist. PewDiePie is the biggest individual YouTuber because the conditions exist to put somebody exactly like that as the biggest. Like this is a point in time where it is utterly unavoidable that this is the mode that things are going to go through. And I think that it's going to get worse. I do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the id poll is going to turn off. I mean, this is what I was saying, like, in March when the lockdown happened. I was like, the economy is going to get worse and the id poll is going to turn up, because that is an inverse correlation to me. Like as soon as the economy is
phone
like,
during the recording, bad form.
Oh yeah, I don't know. That's not mine. But yeah, anyways,
Sorry.
like just the idea of like as things get worse, and it's kind of what you guys are talking about, like this emptiness kind of like fostering this more like, you know, reaching for some type of answer for why things are getting worse, and you're just desperate for something, and like identity politics kind of helps answer that. It's like, why the fuck is my job gone? Why the fuck is everyone in my town on heroin? It's like, oh, right-wing id poll, that explains all that shit. Why the fuck are the cops like busting through and killing everybody in my hood? Like, oh, left-wing id poll. Like, oh, it's just a simple, nice, convenient, prepackaged answer.
This is
and it's not the full picture, and it's just as things get worse. And I said this before, and it literally happened, like literally months later. Like the timeline was fucking insane. The amount of atomized like niche id poll insanity that was going on, it was unbelievable. And it kind of died down.
Also,
since
like
then.
went fucking nuts there. Like it just,
Yeah.
It was kind of dying off, and then this shit happened, and it just spiked because cancel culture is an extension of that. It's 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's all related. I mean, it's kind of calmed down now, but once another dip happens, like it's gonna get way worse. It's only gonna get worse until we fix the base of it. Until we fix what's going on economically, it's just gonna keep getting worse. And I think the other thing that you guys were talking about as far as like the emptiness kind of breeding this longing for this stuff is like, I feel like the other big thing of this is the paranoia, and that's kind of what you're talking about, Peter, with the stalkers and all that. It's like,
yeah,
these people, you know, it's not just like they're evil or whatever. It's like there's a real inherent paranoia and sickness of the mind where it's like it's not that they're just crazy, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I knew someone who was like, you know, a rad femme or whatever, and like a lot of these media for like id poll woke stuff is like they feed off your traumas. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They fester that shit,
Yes.
and then you end up, everybody who's outside of your group or who's your cultural enemy, whatever the opposite id poll group is, you only view them in the most demonic, evil way. And if you go into the subreddits, you see it. They're like a mirror image of each other. It's like pure demonic visions of the other side. You know what I mean? It's like what the right was seeing with all the lootings and all. It's just nothing but one image of a group. And you know what I mean? They just get festered into this paranoia and this fear. And you know what I mean? And that's where if you say anything that slightly deviates from that, they're like, oh, you must be with the demons. You must be with my enemy that wants to kill me.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, yo, chill the fuck out. You know what I mean? If things are fine in your life and things are going all right, and you're not like scraping to survive, you're less prone to slip into that mentality. But you see it on the left, you see it in the right, and the worse the thing gets, the more people are going to slip into that shit. It's inevitable.
No, I totally agree. I have nothing to add to that. That was very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say one thing. It's maybe a little bit of a step back, but like you had talked about anti-SJW content creators. I know I'm not the first person to say this, but I hate the term content creator because it is just so like shoveling things into a trough. But like,
Yes. I mean, it sucks because like you really can't call it anything else because that's what people know it as. But like, yeah, it does suck.
right. It's the used term, and to be fair, you know, like things are across so many mediums and splintered off that it's not a not useful phrase. But in any case, these like anti-SJW content creators, I think, are the funniest cases out of all of this because like I'm personally into like tabletop games a lot, right? So I'll like, you know, I'll watch a YouTube video here or there talking about D&D or something like that, right? And in these spheres, oh boy, they love the anti-SJW videos, and I've partaken here or there, right? Because to be perfectly honest, a lot of like the nerd subcultures were basically like where a lot of this stuff was first tried out and kind of where it started out before it broke into mainstream in a lot of cases, at least how I see it. But the funniest part about a lot of these YouTubers is that they're literally just liberals. Like they're all they're right wing, right? But they're all fucking basically arguing for just a return to the 1990s. And they can only argue against people that are basically, you know, just an example of the fact that like liberalism is producing more and more horrendous fucking David Cronenberg horrors and more
Absolutely.
as time goes on. And the best fucking response they have to it is just is sad liberalism wanting to go back to how things were in the 90s. I mean, to be honest, to kind of zoom out even more, that's basically what Jordan Peterson was, right? Jordan Peterson is basically just Protestant liberal vanilla ice cream, right? It's just like he's just a dude who read Joseph Campbell. And
that's why Rubin says, "Oh, I'm a classical liberal."
Right.
You know what I mean? They'd always harken back to that and fucking Peterson.
I mean, ultimately, like it's reactionary either to like the turn of the century or reactionary to the other turn of the century that's closer.
Right. Exactly. And it's just, I mean, these guys are, I don't know, pour one out for them. They're just the biggest losers of them all because they're really just overseeing a kingdom that has long since been brought out with the tide. I mean, it's
basically like every Dark Souls world is the one that we're living in. Like this sort of dying, horrible husk of a society that you are traversing through to light the lanterns.
Right, like
that is what we live in, right?
The quartering wants us all to move back to Anne Orlando, but dude, those stairs are huge. I'm not 12 feet tall. I can't traverse this.
No, and traversal is such a big part of it.
100%.
Yeah, I knew some kids who like got into Peterson. It was just kind of like, it seemed like just like a lost. I don't know, just kind of like you're not connecting socially with women or whatever, and just kind of like things aren't going well job wise, and it's just like I don't know if that's everybody who got into this. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like it just seemed like it was all the things on the right was just kind of like this response to like things getting worse.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean. It's just like a reaction. It's not really I don't think they even really care what his solutions are. I don't even know if they really
No,
did.
they
like,
just want to be acknowledged. That's literally his job is to acknowledge them.
Yeah, he just keeps talking about, you're being emasculated. You're supposed to be a man. Like, the society is fucked up. And, like, he's hitting at that note. And if you're a guy who's living right now and, like, things are fucked up, like, you're the social script as far as with Me Too, like, how you're supposed to interact with women and, like, your life isn't going the way it's supposed to economically or whatever, like, that shit is going to click with you. Of course it's going to click with you.
Start applying Joker makeup whenever you can.
I will say him addressing like what I'll refer to as nihilism, I think is something that is totally fucking reasonable and totally on the fucking money. And I think that, I mean, my theory is that everyone is coping or addressing with a lack of meaning in their own ways. I think that like the Bernie movement was kind of doing for lack of a better metaphor, a weekend at Bernie's with the history of like labor politics. A lot of kind of just LARPing around as like, hey, we're in the golden days. We're gonna play some Woody Guthrie tunes and
you're right.
The last 50, we're gonna have a Chapo episode where we're all gonna sing Solidarity Forever and like. You know, like I mean, this shit literally.
They're all talking like 50s radio announcers all of a sudden.
I know. It's like, everyone's turned into fucking Orson Welles. I mean, this had me literally like rereading Steinbeck. I won't even lie. But like, it's embarrassing. But like, he was completely on the money about that, to be perfectly honest. And I think that there was like probably a pretty good reason for why like the debate between him and Zizek didn't actually end up being like Zizek and him disagreeing on a hell of a lot. It was mainly just Zizek being like, you have a really cucked way of looking at the spectrum. Yeah. And so you should probably stop that. But like a lot of your fundamental assumptions and views are like fairly reasonable. And all of the leftists that like didn't understand, because no one understands half of what Zizek says, were maybe kind of confused. But like, no, they like agreed on a lot of the basic assumptions.
Well, another thing is people really just hated the idea that Zizek didn't go in and just like literally slap him in the face.
Right. He didn't bash the fash.
Oh
yeah.
Well, I think that's a good example of a way to, like, we were talking about earlier, how to combat echo chambers, like, and that type of like alienation and like being unapproachable with your politics. And I think that right there is a good example of that. Like being able to show that, we disagree like fundamentally, but like all these things you're bringing up, are very valid. And like from your material circumstances, they make perfect sense. Here's why they're misplaced. And like, here's why that is a cucked worldview. Like, and not like, oh, you fucking idiot, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have to interact with ideas that are different, and you have to be able to see where they're coming from rather than just writing them off top. Like I was reading an article about these like algorithms and echo chambers and like how it's led to people being more atomized and blah blah blah, which is like no shit.
Yeah,
but like they're like, yeah, the best ways to combat this would be like going out and talking to people with different views than you, and like going out and like experiencing different viewpoints and cultures, like just being a normal, regular, fucking well-adjusted, well-rounded human. And it's like,
but we're
no
pulling
one
people away from like these
anymore.
things are they are like they're nodes of power pulling people directly away from those things. Like they're making it harder to do that, and I think that like it's exerted on people rather than like a choice that people make. And and that's the thing that I think is much more important to keep in mind here. Like what Zizek did in that debate, quote unquote, was more or less find a way to reach through that as opposed to try to beat them out of it, because there's no way to beat them out of it, which is funny because he himself has said that you basically have to beat people out of it. But like what works and what you think works are different things usually. And that's I think that's like really where to land. Like it's really about understanding the other person, and it can never not be about that. Because if you're coming at it from some other angle, like you're always going to appear like an adversary.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like Peterson's right about a lot of shit, but he's just like his fucking solutions are fucking stupid as fuck.
If he has
solutions are like clean your room, yeah, exactly. I mean, him and Zizek, in my opinion, are opposite sides of the same coin. Like they don't say anything. Like they have no substance to anything they say. They've got good critiques and they've got good like rhetoric about shit, about the state of things. It's pretty language, but it's like they're not saying shit, in my opinion. But either way, like I just feel like there's I always wonder, because like I get why people get into these enclaves. Like if you're in an urban elite enclave, like why you only talk to people who think like you. I get that, but I was wondering like why are underclass people in these echo chambers too? And a lot of it is just the internet and people just being alienated wherever you are, whatever part of the world or country you're in. Like you're still alienated because of fucking the state of things right now. And that's why you're gonna fall into these echo chambers, maybe online or whatever, and you're just gonna find people that only think the way you do. And when you finally have to talk to somebody who might be like a 2 doors down from you, who thinks completely differently politically, like you have no idea how to talk to them because you've been in your own head and you've been reaffirming all your beliefs with people that think exactly like you. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we might be guilty of this too. Who knows? But like, you're still like, that's why you're.
No, I think everyone's guilty.
Yeah,
of it.
Everybody's guilty of course.
I think it's inherent, like in our society. I don't think it's a choice for anyone, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're prone to talk to people who think like you to a degree, of course. But like, yeah, I think as things get more atomized with like neoliberal capitalism, like it gets even harder to fucking just have a basic conversation. It's not about civility. It's like you can't talk to people. You can't even like understand why they're saying what they're saying. Like you can't even. There's no communication. Just breaks down. That's kind of dangerous in the long term as that gets worse.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, we're not exempt from it, but I will say I'm fairly proud of the following that FedPost has, and that like
facts.
We have some right wingers that reach out. We got some for inexplicably, probably through Drew, but we got a lot of globo perverts. A lot of neolibs. Like some
libertarians.
We got libertarians. Those fucking
Marxist
freak shows.
We got radlibs. We got everybody.
Yeah, and
we got QAnon.
Do we really?
Hey.
Yeah, I think we got
that
a couple
fucking
QAnon
rules.
listeners. We have to.
Yay.
I know I've got a couple of right wingers
coalition.
that followed me just off of my QAnon tweets, and then they're like, "Yeah, I like the pod." So,
hell yeah, brother. Hey, I'm just going to say to any believing patriots out there listening right now, trust the plan, baby. Trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
Yeah.
Trust the plan.
Where we go, one FedPost goes as well.
Absolutely. We all know where the tunnels are located, and we're actually, after the recording, we're going to tell Peter the location of the tunnels. We're building an army.
Yeah, we're recording from a tunnel. Yeah.
Watch like me making this joke like gets us all murdered.
It gets us banned off Spotify finally.
Fuck, that would be tremendously inconvenient for me.
Yeah, that would fucking suck.
We move it to YouTube.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, I can continue being a consumer there.
Yeah, exactly. Because we got to worry about our brand as well
Yeah.
and our market.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is good. This is perfect. We got a good amount in. This
Cool.
is perfect. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
of
is-
course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for real,
anytime.
man.
Totally.
Just,
For
give
real,
me a
this
little
is-
bit of notice and I'll schedule it. And I'm happy to do it. I enjoyed this. It's great.
Yeah, me too.
Definitely.
Yo, and props to you or your production team or whoever, because your videos are pretty high quality.
Oh,
man.
thanks.
was
I
watching
don't have
couple
a
of them.
production team. I just do them.
Nice. So that's impressive.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, I've
That's good shit, man.
admired your stuff for a while, so yeah, very interested. We'll break glass in case of emergency and send you a DM if the rest of the Biden laptop info gets dropped, and have you on
Oh,
for
nice.
an
Nice.
emergency.
Yes. Please
Emergency
do.
pod, yeah. Nice, man. Yeah, we definitely
Yeah, and
gotta-
I got a Biden tote bag coming to you as a thank you gift. for having
We're
me.
also we're not disclosing which one, by the way. We're not disclosing which
There
one.
are several, and it's one of them. It's
No, there's one of them. You can tell.